everyone. So I'm going to be talking about week 5 and the readings and essays for this week. And yes, we do have a Christmas tree up already. This is my mom's Elvis Christmas tree right there behind me. I hope you guys do enjoy looking at it while I talk about week 5's readings. So the first thing that I want to talk about is in the a thing I commented on in the first essay, and actually kind of probably my biggest takeaway from that particular reading, and like the thing that definitely did stand out to me the most, was the fact that it was commented in the reading that in the technique, Meisner had stated that he felt that most importance was for a actor to focus on really just their character and not so much for the rest of the ensemble. I found this to be very interesting because a lot of times, depending on, the production, the director, the actor, whatever, there are times where you do have people that say it is more important to focus on just your character. And then a lot of other times you also have people that say there is a lot of importance that goes onto focusing on your character, but you also need to pay attention to what some people in the ensemble are doing. That way you are able to kind of react to whatever it is that they're doing. So you're able to see what they're doing, thinking, okay, this is what they're doing. If I share a scene with them, how do I need to react responsibly or realistically to what it is that they are doing? So not really only focusing on what you are doing with your character, but putting maybe a little focus on what they're doing if you are sharing scenes with them, and making sure you're paying attention to their choices so you can react to their choices. But in his case, he was talking about just in placing all of the importance on focusing on your character yourself. He is definitely not the first person I've heard say that. I've heard a lot of the people say that the importance goes to you to focus on what you're doing, and they're going to focus on what they're doing, and we'll bring it together later, but you still got to focus on what you're doing, and that's where the most importance lies. So I know not everybody takes that path of thinking when it comes to this technique, but I thought that was very interesting, and that was something that was noted in the first reading with him. I found a lot of interesting things in the second reading, and that I did note on in the second essay. One of the things was talking about Meisner's repetition techniques and the training that he does with that. That definitely stood out to me because I actually remember doing this in one of my previous college classes. In our acting class, we actually had several sessions where we would partner with somebody, or the teacher would partner us with somebody. It was always somebody different, so it was never the same person in class. And the first time we did it, it was just us standing or sitting, looking at each other, doing the repetition technique. After that, it got to where he wanted us to choose our own activity that we were doing. So like some people chose kind of bigger things to move around. Some people chose smaller things. I believe that my activity was drawing something. I remember a girl coming in with a hula hoop and like did her focus on that while still doing the repetition technique, and not necessarily commenting specifically on what you were doing with that task, but commenting on a whole bunch of other things. So like how you seemed, what you were doing like with the task, what your face was doing, like a lot of things that we were meant to comment on, and then do that repetition back and forth. And then I do remember at some point we were changing the phrase. Like at one point we would repeat the phrase for so long, and then at some point one of us would have to change the phrase and then repeat that one for so long. I remember that being a very interesting technique, and I do remember in the reading it said at the Playhouse they would do that technique for several hours at a time, 5 days a week for like the first 3 months. And I just thought, wow, that's a very, very long time to be focusing on that. I'm sure that there are some great benefits to that. But I am sure that the actors that probably went through that process probably thought it was a little tedious at times to go over the same thing over and over and over again. But in the end, I'm sure it was very beneficial to them. There were some other good things that I found that were interesting in the second reading, and the other one being that they commented that Miser did not care where the actors got the emotion as long as they were able to get it. I found that very interesting because a lot of times you do have teachers or directors that absolutely care where the actors are getting the emotion, because they also want to keep the actor's kind of mental state and well-being in mind. And so they want to make sure that they're able to kind of pull the actor back out once the scene and or performance is over. And so I find it interesting that he said he didn't care where they got it from as long as they were able to pull from the emotion. A lot of people are like this too. They don't care where you get the emotions from as long as you were conveying the right emotion. And a lot of other times you get people who do kind of care because they don't want you pulling wrong emotions. They don't want you taking it too far. And they definitely want to make sure that you are still mentally okay. Like say that you're having to pull like some like sad emotions or depressed emotions, or like when you're dealing with really strong emotions, a lot of times directors or teachers want to make sure that you are going to be okay when you're done. Like you are pulling from something that they're very easily able to pull you back from. And a lot of other times you get somebody who's just like, I don't care where you get it, but you get it and get the right one for this performance. And a lot of times actors are pretty good about being able to pull themselves back out. They're able to draw, like they're able to sit on that line in between of drawing just enough for what they need, but not too much that it takes them a minute before they're ready to do something else. But then sometimes you get somebody that needs help with drawing the right emotions from the right things and then making sure that they are okay once the performance is over. All right, guys, so those were my thoughts on the readings for this week. I hope that you enjoyed them, and I can't wait for next week.